thinking he's going to be the next head coach? Well, Adrian Wojnarowski just tweeting moments ago, negotiations between the Lakers and Ty Lue have reached an impasse without a deal to make him the franchise's next head coach. League sources telling ESPN. Let's bring in Woj right now. Woj, what happened? This looked like they were going in this direction. He was going to be the next head coach. Why the impasse?
Kevin, they've been unable to come to an agreement on a contract, on staffing for a potential assistant coaching staff. And right now, talks have ended. And whether they start up again, whether the Lakers decide to proceed differently with Ty Lue, right now they don't have a deal, and there's an expectation that there's not going to be a deal that makes Ty Lue the next Lakers head coach.
You mentioned in a tweet recently, following up the initial tweet about the impasse, about Jason Kidd and his involvement on this coaching staff. What more can you tell us?
Well, Jason Kidd interviewed for the head coaching job in L.A., met with Rob Pelinka, with Kurt Rambis, who's a part of that hierarchy now, made a strong impression with them, and certainly had success in Milwaukee, Brooklyn. And I think what attracted the Lakers was the impact he had on the young talent in Milwaukee that you're seeing now have fully blossomed and maybe headed here toward the conference finals under Mike Budenholzer, that they wanted, I'm told, Ty Lue to consider Kidd as part of his staff. And where Ty Lue fell on that, it is unclear to me. But typically a head coach wants to bring in his own staff, and sometimes they may not want someone who interviewed for the head job. But certainly the Lakers felt strongly about Jason Kidd and that he could have an impact, especially with some of the young players in L.A. That was not a sticking point in this. They can't get there so far on contract, and there's a lot of issues that go into completing a deal, and they reached the end of the road this evening in those talks.
Woj, what's next now for the Lakers in this head coach search?
It's unclear, Kevin. They'd interviewed 4 candidates. We mentioned Jason Kidd, Juwan Howard, assistant of Miami, and Monty Williams has already gone to Phoenix. So either the Lakers can decide to re-engage on Ty Lue and maybe present a deal that is more appetizing to him, and maybe they find a way to still get it done, or maybe they just move on now. But that's a decision the Lakers are going to have to make here. They had hoped to have a coach in place by the pre-draft combine next week in Chicago, and if they don't hire Ty Lue, well, that's in jeopardy.
We'll see how this plays out with Jeannie Buss as well as Rob Pelinka moving forward. Adrian Wojnarowski with the very latest with the Lakers and Ty Lue.
Let's bring in Stephen A. Smith now, live from Oakland. We'll get you to Rockets Warriors in a second. But first, Stephen A., I'd like your reaction to the news that Woj just broke. Talks shutting down between the Lakers and Ty Lue. What do you think?
Well, I'm not surprised. And I'm not surprised, number one, because I've seen what's been going on with the Lakers, and number two, because I know Ty Lue pretty well. Let's be clear about something here. Since Magic Johnson abruptly resigned as president of basketball operations with the Los Angeles Lakers, who is running the organization? We simply do not know. Jeannie Buss admittedly has little to nothing to do with basketball. It's not me making decisions. It's Magic Johnson making basketball decisions. That's not my realm. That's not my lane. Okay, but then we heard the name Linda Rambis, and we hear the name Rob Pelinka. So you don't know. It's in flux right now, and it's a bit haphazard. So you have that situation. And then we get to Ty Lue. Understand something about Ty Lue. He is a person that's very prideful. He is an individual that believes in his accomplishments and believes that there's a certain level of respect that should be accorded to a coach of his credentials. Remember, when he first got the Cleveland job, he was initially an assistant. He was supposed to be the head coach for the Cleveland Cavaliers, but Dan Gilbert, the owner for the Cavs at the time, wanted David Blatt. So what does they do? You got Griffin as the GM. He brings on Ty Lue as a lead assistant, being paid one of, if not the highest paid assistant in basketball. It was ultimately his job, the coach in waiting, the head coach in waiting. He takes over the Cleveland Cavaliers, and he guides them to 3 consecutive NBA Finals appearances, along with an NBA championship. So his belief is, what does a championship coach bring to the table. He certainly doesn't have to capitulate and hire assistants you want him to hire. He wants who he wants. And if you wouldn't hold anybody else to those conditions, don't hold me to those conditions. That is what I get from Woj's report just now, and that's the Tyronn Lue I know.
Yeah, I mean, safe to say, though, it is a mess right now in Los Angeles with what is going on with those Lakers. How about we focus on teams that are actually still playing? A couple of big storylines as we come into tonight with 2 Game 5s. Let's start with the reigning MVP, one of the storylines, James Harden. He'll try to pick up where he left off after averaging 39.5 points, 9.5 boards, 5 assists in Games 3 and 4. But will he be able to find his shot on the road at Oracle? He was just 38% from the field in the first 2 games of this series. So there's Harden. And then what about the Warriors? They're going to need another big performance from a former MVP, Kevin Durant. He's averaging 35.4 points this postseason, the most by any player through the first 10 games of a postseason since Michael Jordan back in 1992. Over in the East, the Bucks are just 1 win away from making their first appearance in the conference finals since 2001. Of course, Giannis is a big reason why. He's on pace to become the first Buck to average 30 and 10 in playoffs and a playoff series since Kareem Abdul-Jabbar in 1974. And could Kyrie Irving be playing his final game as a Celtic? He's shooting just 31%, Stephen A. That's from the field, 20% from three-point range over Boston's last 3 games. Close to a must-win for them. Here's Kyrie.
What's the message amongst the team with their back against the wall in the series right now?
Just let it fly, man. Everything you got. You know, the last 3 games, when they've pulled away, we haven't responded. And so we've just got to be able to move on to what's next, play better, and not play what I would say to be somewhat haphazard. I think that ultimately we just have to stay the course with what we're trying to accomplish. What's the message?
Yeah, amongst the players, what's the mindset?
Yeah, I mean, it's trying to do everything we can to get a win. You know, it's do or die, so leave it all out there.
Okay, that Bucks-Celtics game, the early one, which is in Milwaukee. Kyrie Irving, the biggest storyline, I think, coming in here, Stephen A. What exactly does he need to do tonight to keep Giannis and the Bucks from closing this thing out?
Well, first order of business is for him to pray. Pray very, very deeply, get on your knees and pray for good luck, because you're going to need all the luck that you can get. The Boston Celtics from game 1 of this series hasn't resembled that team over the last 3 games. The Greek Freak has been absolutely phenomenal. Middleton has been stellar. So has Bledsoe. So has George Hill. And you got guys like Mirotic coming off the bench doing what he does. They've got size. They've been dominating in the paint. They've been hitting perimeter shots. And you've got 4 perimeter shooters. That includes the Greek Freak on the Milwaukee Bucks, who are shooting better from three-point range than Kyrie Irving is shooting from the field. You combine that with the fact that Jason Tatum just hit a three-pointer in Game 4, that Al Horford and Jaylen Brown have been playing relatively well, but nobody, not one single individual on the Boston Celtics have been a star, let alone a superstar, and you couple that with the fact that you're going up against the Greek Freak, who's resembled a superstar. It goes back to my initial point. Pray. And pray hard.
Kyrie Irving, 19 of 62 from the field in his last 3 games. That's one reason why the Bucks are 9-point favorites. Okay, Stephen A. Come back with Mike Wilbon in a little bit to talk about the game where you are in Oakland, Rockets Warriors. Thanks, Stephen A.
Ahead, we're going to get those predictions from Wilbon and Stephen A. Smith, and you never know what these two will come up with. That's coming your way on SportsCenter, as well as Luke Voigt and the Yankees. You're going to see them